Welcome everyone to another workshop here at the Test Camp. This is Elementary Education Mathematics, and today we're going to discuss how learning and practicing test skills will empower your test confidence. Those of you joining us live online, we wish you could be here in person, but of course you're welcome to contribute your comments anytime, and we'll include as many as we can in the discussions. If you're joining us directly through the Test Camp YouTube channel on demand, of course, you can pause and restart or replay that video anytime. Again, this workshop is one of our series in the elementary education tests. We'll discuss the different types of tests used in different states and how mathematics is tested. Feel free to ask questions during the workshop here today, and I'll repeat them for those who are listening to the recording. All right, you likely know by now that around here the motto is prepare, practice, perform. Everyone who has successfully completed their training has passed their tests, and that's because testing is a skill which requires that practice. And this is the only place to practice and learn those practice test skills. Okay, so to prepare here at the Test Camp means to understand yourself. It's an honest assessment of how well you know the test content and your testing skills. We start by learning the test blueprint. Those of you who participated in the career workshops, well, you know that the blueprint provides all the information you need to fully understand a test. This can also be a first good step to creating what we call my study plan. This plan will guide you through the testing skills training designed specifically for your test. Now here's an overview of the elementary ed test that's used in many states, maybe not yours, but in many. We can see here that this is a single test that has a combined 4 subject areas. These areas are listed according to the percentage of questions on the test. If this is the test you're taking, it's important to know that the mathematics accounts for the second largest number of questions. So this single combined elementary education test has 140 multiple choice questions, and the time allotted is 150 minutes. So an average of just over 1 minute is allotted for each question. Now here's an overview of a different elementary education test, also used in many states. This test includes questions about teaching and has a subtest for each subject area. The mathematics subtest has 52 questions, and the allotted time is 85 minutes, so an average of about 1.5 minutes for each question. Here's another test used by some states. So you'll want to know which elementary education test is required for your state or maybe even for your school district. Are you required to take a single combined test, or can you expect a test with teaching questions and a subtest for each subject area? In any case, the first step is to identify what types of math questions you can expect to encounter. Now, not the question format. We know that all the questions are multiple choice. We're going to identify the math competencies today on which questions are built. Here's how we isolate each competency on our individual quizzes here at the Test Camp. Taking quizzes based on each competency will provide you instant feedback and point you in the direction to review and study. Yes, we got a question right over here. Thank you. I'll repeat it for those listening to the recording. Yes, teaching questions are included in each individual subtest. Yes, and we discussed those over in the training center. Thank you, good question. So let's take a closer look at each competency, beginning with numbers. You'll find on the test information guides published by each state that these are the main concepts associated with numbers. Proving your competency to teach numbers also includes demonstrating your knowledge of place value, rounding, and estimating. Let's look at some sample questions based on this competency. Is it clear why this question was created from the competency numbers? Yeah, there you go, fractions. All right, let's look at another example. What do you see here? Percents, right? Fractions and decimals. Good. All right, one more. Can you tell just from the answers here? Yes, that this is going to be a numbers question. All right, and there's dozens of these types of questions over on the quizzes at the Test Camp, so you can check your knowledge on this competency. Do you remember the second competency then is algebra? And this might be the easiest one to identify How can you easily identify an algebra question? Variables, equations. This is algebra, right? It's also an example of a question you might want to mark and save. There's just too many steps, and over at the training center you'll learn how to do that. Here's another example. Definitely a question to mark or save, and definitely algebra. In fact, here they make you write out the equation, it looks like. That's way too many steps to justify stopping your momentum. The second type of algebra question involves the coordinate plane. So you remember the coordinate plane, right? From probably middle school, high school. Why was there a need in mathematics for the coordinate plane? Well, let's think about it. If 0 is your starting point, what do you need to know to get up there to that point that's marked? You need to know your position and the position of the point, right? So next you'd have to determine the direction. You might also remember terms like ordered pairs and slope. Do you remember this? So the ordered pairs is the position, the slope is the direction. And again, there's quizzes designed to test your knowledge for all this over in the training center. You'll be fine with this. You'll start to remember. And yes, go ahead right over here. Right, and that's about as high as it goes, you know, in terms of curriculum. Right, generally you can say up through 8th grade or so. A little bit of algebra 1 and some geometry. And speaking of that, that is the next competency, isn't it? If you had to explain geometry in just one word, what would you say? If you over here, if you had to tell elementary kids, what are we studying? Shapes, right. So let's look at some sample questions. Here's only a set of answers here coming up. Right, so even without the stem of the question, it's clear that this is a geometry question. All right, let's do another sample question. And again, easy to identify. I think there might be one more. There it is. The next mathematics competency is measurement. And there are several approaches to determining if a question is based on measurement. You remember geometry was shape, measurement is units. Okay, so think of these units that are being measured. Weight, like kilograms, ounces, grams. Distance, is distance the same thing as weight? So you got the height up there, the weight, distance, speed. Remember those rate times times questions? Those are all measurement questions. Here's an example. Right. And here's the old Susan painting her room question. This is definitely one to mark and save. And notice this question is a combination of measurement and geometry, a shape. You're being asked to measure the shape. So really the competency being tested would be, yeah, right, geometry, because you have to know something about the shape. But that's not going to be asked on the test. This is just to help you know where you might want to go and review and study. So here again are the first 4 competencies. Do you remember the 5th competency? Don't say it out loud. Talk amongst yourselves there for a couple minutes. When you get it, be ready to explain what types of questions you think might be included in this 5th competency. We'll come back as a group and we'll discuss what you came up with. All right, if you're joining us today live online, share your thoughts and we'll include them in the discussion. And if you're joining us by the Test Camp YouTube channel on demand, this might be a good time to pause the recording and think about this competency, which, by the way, is data. All right, so what do you think might be included in data? And we'll be here when you restart the video. Everyone came up with a 5th competency, so we're in good shape here. It was data, right? Is that what everybody said? All right, and over at the training center, we identify the types of questions easily because data means facts. Geometry meant shapes, measurement is units, and data is just simply facts. If a data question is based on the past or the present, it's reporting statistics. If data is based on a prediction of the future, It's called probability. Now, many of the data questions include images like tables or charts or lists. And here's another example. So during your training, you're going to learn how to mark and save these types of questions on your first pass through the test. Oftentimes, the main concept of a data question might be central tendency. You remember this? That's why they collect data. Sometimes they want to know what's in the middle. Isn't that it? Central and tendency, what tends to be in the middle? And how about these terms? You getting flashbacks now to middle school? Well, in a few minutes, we're going to discuss the best resources for reviewing and studying terms like this for this test. All right, the final competency, which is not on all the tests, especially that combined test, but is on some of the subtests, is teaching. And there's dozens of questions related to teaching over the training centers. Expect most teaching questions to be about strategies and assessment. And here's a question related to strategies. See, we have that start down there at the bottom. And then up to the top. And here's a math strategies question. This one is related, however, to assessment. So down at the bottom, diagnostic, formative, summative, benchmark, and up to the top. So that's just a brief overview of the competencies or the types of questions you can expect on your test. What do you know about a passing score for standardized tests, especially certification tests? Yes, over here. That is absolutely correct. Each state is different, and each test is different and graded differently in each state. So what we do at the test campus, we set the bar at 80%. Now, this is a good target score, one that will ensure you pass your test. Most of them are scaled scores, generally in the 70 percentile, somewhere in 70, mid-70s at the highest. Right? Do you remember this test we talked about? Since there's 140 questions on this combined test, you would need about 100 correct answers for the entire test. Okay? And answering at least 30 of those 41 math questions there, that would contribute to a passing score. How about on this mathematics subs test? You've got 52 questions, you'd need about 40 or so. And on this test, it would be about the same. 50 questions, about 40 correct answers to earn a pass. So that brings us to the last discussion here, which is, which would you choose? Now, knowing that there's these different competencies here, which one for you personally is less challenging? You have a lot of confidence in that area, even without studying. And which one would you want to review? You might consider that a more challenging area. So talk this over at your tables, then we'll discuss your preferences as a group. Hey, for those of you who joined us live online today, thanks for sharing your thoughts, and we'll keep including them up here on the discussion. And if you're watching this pre-recorded workshop, pause the recording and do a little self-reflection. Which would you choose, and how do you prepare for a standardized test? Come back and join us anytime. We'll be here when you restart the video. We are back. Okay, we're back up here. We had some interesting discussion about the strategies for reviewing and studying. I think we can summarize by saying there's no correct way to do that. Everybody has a personal preference, but we do agree that we need to prepare for this test. And you started that here today. You joined the workshop, so I hope this has been helpful for you. Has it? Good, very good. And so you know a little more about the test, you know a little bit more about yourself. The next thing is to know a little bit about the tools that maybe you want to go out and get to help you be successful. And for those of you who have been through the test camp before, you know there's signs are posted all along the pathways during your training. These are messages from those who have gone before you. They leave encouraging messages, and in this case a warning, which is to avoid spending your time and money on expensive resources that you just don't need for this kind of test. Commercial webinars are a good example. Avoid paying for free test information and strategies. You don't need a webinar for that. Expensive tutors and tutoring companies might be an option for more challenging tests if you're getting up into trigonometry or calculus, but certainly not for this. It only goes up through, what would we say, about 8th grade in terms of curriculum. And then overpriced study guides are out there. Has anybody had a issue with that? You've gone into a store? Yes. What have you paid or heard? $40 or more. Well, many guides are available either free or very inexpensive. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But you know, the most effective and inexpensive resource really is textbooks. Now that you know the competencies being tested, textbooks are the best for reviewing and studying, really. But for those who want to get something more than that, over in the My Resources area at the training site, expect to find the most popular and up-to-date resources. And you can see right there that even the study guide, $5 through Amazon. So what they're recommending to you is, instead of investing time and money on resources, invest in yourself. Invest in doing the test skills, practicing the test skills that you could pass on to your students. Expect to gain confidence. Expect to gain personal independence. Now, your pass provides admission to all the training areas there. So when you get over here, up there at the top, you'll find My Test. And that's the activity that enables you to check your understanding of the blueprint, everything we've talked about here today. And you can also take a pre-test before training there too. This is the test camp problem solving system. The first step to finding the correct answer, right up there at the top, is to identify the question by the competency. Sound familiar? That's what we've been starting with today. Quizzes and tests provide an opportunity to practice your test skills while assessing your test content knowledge, and the quizzes are based on the competencies. Yes, ma'am, right over here, and I'll repeat it for the folks listening in. Yes, you have several attempts at each one, and the questions and answers change randomly on each attempt. And that's a good question. There's even a combined quiz down there that combines all of these, kind of like a mini test as you go into the practice tests. So over in the test area, you'll find practice tests. You'll find the post test that can even earn you a professional test certificate. All right, so then expect to perform with confidence that comes from the knowledge and the skills earned during the training. All right, so that's how it works. There's no better time than now to empower your test confidence.